Hi guys, and welcome back to Oz Fantastic Adventures.
We're in Bundaberg at the moment, so what we're hoping to do is to check out a few of the sites here, including the distillery, where they make the Bundaberg rum.
And we're also going to chase up a bit of history and have a look at the Hinkler Hall of Aviation in the Botanical Gardens here.
And the other thing that we would like to have a look at is some of the coastlines, so we hope to pop out to Elliot Heads.
And we'll chuck in some groovy street art that we found while we were staying at Yeppoon recently, and give you a look at that. And also we're going to take you for a bit of a trip around the Botanical Gardens in Bundaberg. It's a garden that's done really well. Enjoy. Hi guys, we're at Yeppoon on the Capricorn coast just out of Rockhampton, and in behind me you can see an installation called the Singing Ship. It was installed in 1970 as a 200-year commemoration of James Cook being in the area when he named Keppel Bay. It's really interesting, the construction. The mast that you can see in the background is actually constructed like a flute, and as the wind comes up off the coast it blows through the mast and creates a sound. I'm not sure whether or not you can hear the sound. It sounds a bit eerie, a bit like a spooky movie, but it's pretty impressive. It's quite tall, and it creates a bit of a beacon out on the point here at Emu Park. Okay, you ask anyone about Australia and straight away they think about the Red Centre and Uluru in the middle. They think about Sydney, they think about the Opera House, they think about the Harbour Bridge, they think about Melbourne, they think about coffee, the MCG and everyone wearing black. You think about Bundaberg and you only think of one thing. Bundaberg Rum. G'day guys, we're at the Bundaberg Distillery. This afternoon Mel and I did a tour here and had a look through the museum that they have here at the distillery, set up before you take a tour. The museum itself is fascinating. As you walk in, you're confronted by a wall of 76,000 litre barrels that are constructed on site, and as you walk in through them, there are actually different rooms that show different facets of the manufacture of rum, the early history of how the company was established, and takes you right through to the different brands and the different makes and recipes used to produce this iconic icon of alcohol. The company came about as a group of mill owners in the Bundaberg region had to discuss what to do with the glut of molasses from their sugar mills. The molasses is a pretty strong byproduct, but it's heavy and it's hard to transport, so to keep using it for cow food and livestock food, it was probably not cost effective. One of them in the group decided, why don't we just try to distill rum, and they all voted in favour and formed the Bundaberg Company. This was in 1888. A year later, in 1889, the distillery was formed, and it's right next to one of the sugar mills on the Burnett River. The company progressed quite quickly and to where it is today, and it's an iconic brand in Australia. 90% of the sales are in Australia, but they are branching overseas, and of that 90% in Australia, 50% of that 90% is Queensland-based sales, so they love their Bundy up here. Interesting, as I say, the distillery's on the same site, but over the course of the last 130 odd years, they did have two fires. The first fire started by an unknown cause, but the second fire was started by lightning, and back in 1936. The fire raged because, as you can imagine, there's so much alcohol on the premises that the fireys back in the day didn't have the equipment that they've got these days, so they rushed in with axes and started to split open the barrels. This proved to be a monumental mistake, and the streets were awash with rum, so much so that the local residents were running up the street with buckets and mops and kettles and pans and scooping up and rushing it back to their baths and their sink and filling up any vessel they could at home with free rum. Environmentally, it was a bit of a disaster that it all ran into the Burnett River, and eventually it caught fire. The fire on the river lasted for 3 days, and before it self-extinguished. A day or so later, all the fish life in the river, being starved of oxygen because of the fire, floated to the surface. This was an absolute boon for the local residents in the area, so they quickly collected all the large barramundi and all the fish and the crabs. Amazingly, or coincidentally, when they went to cook the fish, it was all marinated in the rum, so the fish had its unusual flavour infused into the meat. So it was they've stumbled onto something that people do now in restaurants. That was pretty clever. The tour was very informative. It lasted for about 45 minutes. It was, I think it cost about $57 for 2 adults with the museum included. And then at the conclusion of the tour, we were invited to the bar and given a drinks card to get 2 drinks of choice. For me, who's not a dark rum drinker as such, but now converted, I was astonished at how many different varieties there are, and it's proven on a world stage now that they're winning awards back to back for their dark rums, and showing them what Australia can do. After we had our drinks, we went into the gift store, where obviously you'd expect there to be a large selection of merchandise to have a look at. Everything from hats, clothes, bottle openers, you name it, it's there. All reasonably priced, and they give you a good discount on any drinks bought on site. So fortunately, unfortunately, either way you want to look at it, we took part in that. But it's worth a visit. It's a pretty extensive tour, you learn a lot, and it can be all over in 45 minutes, and you get a free drink at the end. What's wrong with that? Situated in the Bundaberg Botanical Gardens is the Hinkler Hall of Aviation. Born in 1892, Bundaberg-born Hinkler was a man fascinated by flight. The son of a sugar mill worker, Hinkler had hand-built man-carrying gliders and flew them successfully by the age of 19 at a local beach, Monrepos. Bert's exploits hit the headlines when he set the record for a non-stop flight from Sydney to Bundaberg in a tiny Avro baby, seen here. He flew the 1,370 kilometres, landed it in a Bundaberg street and taxied up to his home to greet his mother, who was in the veggie patch. A keen mathematician and an eye for design, Bert went on to design many planes that were new to the field, culminating in his last project, the Ibis. He was in the process of designing an amphibious plane, which he did in fact build in Southampton in England and made it as a gift to the Australian government. In 1928, Bert flew the first solo flight from England to Australia on the 7th of February 1928, arriving in Darwin on the 22nd of Feb. He reduced the England to Australia flight from 28 days to 15 and a half days. The dangerous record-breaking flight made Bert an instant celebrity around the world. The museum has many displays, some interactive and some passive, but plenty to keep your attention, with citations, medals and the like that was awarded to Bert over the years. 1933, Bert, while attempting to break the England to Australian record against solo, crashed and died in the Italian foothills outside of Tuscany. He was afforded a full military honours by the then dictator Benito Mussolini. A small piece of wood from a glider Bert had made was presented to US astronaut John Lind in 1986 in appreciation for his coming to Bundaberg to contribute to the Hinkler Memorial Lectures. He in turn gave it to Dick Scobie, the captain of the ill-fated Challenger mission. Scobie took the piece on board the Challenger inside a plastic bag and placed it in his locker. After the explosion, the bag and piece were recovered from the sea, identified, mounted and later returned to the Hinkler Museum. Bert built himself a house whilst living in Southampton in England. He named it Monrepos in honour of the beach that he first flew gliders as a 19-year-old. Earmarked for demolition in 1983 by the Southampton Council, Bundaberg locals banded together, raised funds and sent 3 guys to England to pull the house apart brick by brick, tile by tile, and bring it back to Bundaberg and mount it in the Botanical Gardens as it was sitting in Southampton. Inside the house has been recreated faithfully with furniture applicable to the time. Each room has a conversation played over audio of day-to-day conversations that might have taken place in each room, whether it be the lounge room, the bathroom or the kitchen.